So, there is a writer named Ned, who is 40 years old, on his way back to his parents' house with his girlfriend, Tony. They just arrived at Ned's parents' house after a long and exhausting journey. Upon arrival, they were warmly welcomed by Sally, Ned's sister. Ned introduced Tony and said that they were going to get married soon. That night, Ned's father, Bruce, was already asleep, so they decided not to wake him up. Ned then reflected in his childhood room, which he used to share with his twin. In the morning, Ned started reminiscing about the past with his twin. His twin was the closest person to him, even though he often played pranks and sometimes showed more interest than just a sibling. Back then, Ned was still naive and didn't understand anything about it. Ned and Tony finally met Bruce, Ned's father, who now suffered from heart disease. Sally, who now took care of their father, looked busy. Suddenly, while Bruce and Ned were talking, Tony saw a photo on the table and asked about the woman in the photo. It turned out to be Kate, Ned's twin sister who had died a long time ago. The question made the atmosphere awkward. Ned, who was still struggling to accept Kate's death, immediately left the room. Sally, full of hope, told Ned to pay more attention to Bruce, who had been waiting for 20 years to meet his child again. But Ned, being stubborn, just ignored his sister's request. Ned and Sally then went to the lake that used to be their favorite place when they were kids. The lake had now started to dry up, and the atmosphere made Ned remember the past. During family lunch, Tony was happily looking at the family photo album and asked if Kate would also come. The question instantly changed Ned's mood. Sally explained that Kate was no longer in this world. After lunch, they went to Ned's father's shed. Ned shared that he once found the body of his older brother, Cliff, who had committed suicide. He also talked about Kate's death in a car accident. In the middle of the night, Ned woke up feeling bored. He went to his father's study and found Cliff's medal. This immediately brought back Ned's past memories. Finally, Ned decided to write a story about his past in a book. The next morning, Ned woke up a bit late and found a note from Sally saying that she would be away for a few days. Sally asked Ned to take care of their father, Bruce. But Ned was still indifferent and went back to his father's study to write. Not long after that, Bruce entered the room, and they started talking about the tragedy that befell their family. Ned shared that Cliff was trying to avoid a kangaroo but ended up in a severe accident that also caused Kate's death. Bruce explained that Cliff was actually still alive, but after seeing Kate had died, Cliff decided to end his own life. Bruce also asked why Ned ran off to the city after that incident. Ned didn't want to discuss it further and instead went to find Tony, who was playing rodeo. This action disappointed Bruce greatly. In the afternoon, Tony came to Ned, who had barely left his father's study. Tony asked Ned to do something. Ned stopped writing and joined Tony, who was ready to water the plants. Ned wanted to honor his father and asked Tony not to be too loud. But Tony raised her voice to be heard by Bruce, which made the atmosphere even tenser. The next day, the lunch alarm went off, and Bruce, who was alone at home, tried to turn it off. Unfortunately, Bruce fell while trying to stand up. Fortunately, Tony came quickly and helped. Although Tony was known as a flamboyant girl, she patiently changed Bruce's clothes that were splashed with drinks. When Bruce asked why Tony wanted to spend time with Ned when she was beautiful and should be in Hollywood, Tony was thrilled because that was indeed her dream, to become an actress in Hollywood. Not long after that, Ned came home and went straight to his father's room. Ned looked happy to see Bruce and Tony getting along and comfortable with each other. As Ned prepared to take a shower, he remembered the past. Ned recalled accidentally walking into the bathroom and seeing Kate showering. Kate initially kicked him out, but after that, they made up and talked about how Kate wanted to stay young and always be able to play with Ned. Although Ned felt emotional, suddenly his little snake acted up and spewed lava, causing Kate to be confused and leave. Ned felt very embarrassed and could only apologize while burying his head in the bed. Back to the present, Ned was busy preparing dinner for Tony. But Tony wasn't in her room. She was engrossed in reading Ned's writings in Bruce's study. When Tony got to the part where Ned's little snake spewed lava because he was sleeping next to his twin, she immediately felt disgusted and considered Ned a freak. A huge argument ensued between them. Tony was furious, and Ned, losing control, retaliated by hitting Tony hard. After the incident, Ned apologized for not being able to control his emotions, but Tony was even more disgusted and decided to leave the house. After Tony left, Ned drank an entire bottle of ketchup and eventually fell asleep. In his sleep, Ned dreamed about that embarrassing incident. In his dream, Ned hid in the garage all day until Kate suddenly came and invited him to leave the garage. Ned explained that he wasn't actually interested in Kate and that everything happened suddenly. Kate seemed to ignore Ned's explanation and said she didn't want to make things awkward between them. Ned woke up in the middle of the night and heard the sound of a car. It turned out to be Tony, who had decided to end their relationship. Ned was furious and started yelling at Bruce, accusing him of contacting someone to take Tony away. In his anger, Ned nearly choked his father, blaming Bruce for Kate's and Cliff's deaths. After that, Ned tried to chase the car that took Tony away. However, in his panic and with the very dark road, his car swerved and got stuck. Finally, Ned had to walk back home and arrived there in the afternoon. When Ned tried to give his father medicine, he was greeted with the cocking of a gun. Bruce, still wary after the events of the previous night, looked genuinely worried. Ned explained that he had been drunk and in a chaotic state the night before. At that moment, the memory of Ned's first time getting drunk started to replay in his mind. That night, after drinking with his friends, Ned came home late. He found his twin sister, Kate, in the kitchen. Afraid of being caught drunk, Ned decided to go to the lake to calm down. It turned out Kate followed and joined him. At the lake, Kate started talking about the little snake incident that had recently happened and told Ned not to think too much about it. They also discussed how Kate had never done anything before. Unexpectedly, Kate approached Ned and asked him to touch her papaya. They talked, and Kate removed the seal that had always been on her for the first time. Ned felt the need to apologize for going too far, but Kate actually felt happy and enjoyed it. After that incident, Ned tried to distance himself from Kate by leaving early in the morning and coming home late at night. However, Ned couldn't keep doing this indefinitely. The memory was interrupted when Bruce suddenly started having seizures. Fortunately, Ned reacted quickly and helped. Bruce asked about Sally's whereabouts, and Ned explained that Sally would be home soon. Bruce worried that Ned would leave once Sally arrived, but Ned assured him that he would stay longer in the house. Over time, their relationship began to resemble that of a true family. Bruce then shared that he had tried to take on the role of mother after her death. However, his efforts only made his children dislike him even more. This conversation brought Ned back to the past. At a party, Ned and Kate exchanged glances and had a heartfelt conversation. Kate then invited Ned to a more private place, but Ned declined and instead immediately hugged Tamara, a friend of his, in front of Kate. Kate cried and walked towards the cliff. Meanwhile, after finishing showing off his skills with Tamara, Ned went home feeling happy. On the way back, Ned came across Cliff's car that had crashed. He quickly checked the car and found Kate no longer breathing, while Cliff was missing from the scene. The next day, Ned discovered that Cliff had hung himself in their barn. Now, Sally had returned from her vacation. In a surprising tone, Sally revealed that she knew about the relationship between Ned and Kate. It turned out that while they were farming by the lake, Sally, who was only 11 years old at the time, followed Kate from the kitchen and witnessed the moment firsthand. Ned tried to explain and looked remorseful, but Sally immediately said she had forgiven the actions of both siblings. Sally then explained more about the relationship between Kate and Cliff. They often farmed together when Ned left Kate for Nora. After that incident, when Kate and Cliff returned from a party, they felt awkward, so Kate chose to sit in the back seat. The accident that occurred took Kate's life. Cliff, feeling guilty about what had happened and for doing something with his own sister, ultimately took his own life. Hearing all these truths, Ned felt immense guilt. Ned believed he could have saved both his siblings and prevented the tragedy if he hadn't been so selfish with Kate. However, despite everything that had happened, Ned realized that the past should serve as a lesson and advice for future generations. Community around them. Ned really wanted to take his youngest sister to the city with him because he was worried. Sally was now truly alone, and Ned felt responsible. However, Sally assured Ned that everyone in the community was her family, and she would never feel lonely. Eventually, Ned decided to return to the city and leave all the memories behind. So, that's our film for today. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thank you.